Welcome to the Consulting Growth Podcast. I'm Professor Joe Omani, a Professor of Consulting at Cardiff University and an advisor to consultancies that want to grow. If you'd like to find more out about me and access some free resources to help your consultancy grow, do please visit joeomani.com. That's joeomahoney.com. Okay, welcome back to the Growth in Consulting podcast. I've got the real pleasure today to have as a prize guest on the show, Michael Kempner, who is, among other things, the CEO and founder of MIKEWORLDWIDE, which is one of the world's top independent public relation firms, and has won lots of awards, has worked with some amazing brands, and has achieved significant growth over the last nearly 40 years. Michael, real pleasure to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, I've given a very brief summary, but of course you've had a long and illustrious career. So would you tell us a little bit about how you've got to where you are today?
Well, sure. I mean, my story is a little unusual for the head of a PR firm. I grew up even as a small child, wanting to get into politics. And I had a very strong desire to change the world. And so I picked a school in Washington, D.C. to go to college, American University, with the idea that I'd get into politics. So I went there very quickly. I was able to secure my first job. Really, it was running errands for the governor of New Jersey in his Washington, D.C. office. But between working very hard in a variety of circumstances, very quickly I found myself working full-time at 19 years old as a special assistant to the governor in Washington and going to school at night. I did that and then spent 10 years or 9 years in U.S. politics, helping to run President Carter's reelection campaign, working for the Democratic National Committee, running a campaign for Congress, and then running a congressman's office. And that was all before I was 23.
Wow.
And I think now, like, who was that person? Because I don't think I could do it today, but that was a lifetime ago. But I worked, by the time I was 23, 24, I was a grizzled veteran and I was pretty tired. So I decided to leave and politics and government. Really, people often think that people don't work hard and they're, a bunch of bureaucrats. You work very hard, actually. So I had very few days off, including weekends, including holidays, for almost 9 years. And I loved every minute of it until I didn't. Yep. And so I decided to leave and go work for somebody I'd met through politics and help run, of all things, a chocolate company. They were liquor-filled chocolates, and they were illegal in America. So I didn't know how to run a business, but I knew how to change the laws. And so I went out and changed 30 state laws and federal law to allow liquor-filled chocolates to be in the United States. And then I, learned how to create the packaging and the marketing and the advertising and the public relations, government affairs, and frankly, built 2 factories. So wow. It was actually nothing I knew how to do, but it was an extraordinary experience. But after the excitement of changing the laws and doing the marketing and introducing the product into the marketplace, it was really just running factories, and that was not what I was interested in.
Sure. So
I left with the chocolate company as a consultant. I had a small consulting contract, but I was young. I had no wife, no children, no obligations, a small apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey, and all I ate was pizza anyway. And so I could live just fine on that small consulting contract until I was going to get a job. Now, this was the first time in my life I was actually applying for a job since that first internship. Because every job had led to the next job. and I had no idea what I wanted to do, but it it, it felt like my skill sets were closest to something around public relations.
Okay.
Well, I had worked for the governor of New Jersey. I'd worked for the congressman from New Jersey. So oddly, at a young age, I knew a huge amount of the kind of socioeconomic infrastructure of the state.
Mm.
And before very long, people were calling me up and asking me to do things for them, stuff, and they'd pay me. And I didn't call them clients. I didn't really even know what a client was. But I had all these people paying me to do stuff for them. Now, I couldn't be and so I started to think, well, I can do this. So I never actually looked for a job. And now I could, after 6 months, and I had all these clients, and we were doing all sorts of work, public affairs and public relations, and a variety of things, just me. I I decided I can't be a stuff firm. I have to be something. And it felt like I was closest to a public relations firm.
Mm.
So I started myself, one room in Jersey City, and here we are today.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And that was what, 1980, early
Yeah,
1980s?
1986. So
Okay.
understand this is, people often joke because I tell the story about one man, one desk, one room, one red IBM Selectric typewriter. I often ask my staff when I tell them the story, have you guys actually ever seen a typewriter, not in the movies, in the
Sure.
flesh? And, there was no internet. There wasn't even
Mm.
beepers, let alone cell phones. And FedEx was just becoming popular, and we had a fax machine, but I don't know if you recall, they were 7 minutes a page. They came out in this silver
Yeah.
paper,
Yeah.
and it didn't even cut the pages. It was like this
Yep.
long roll. And so that's where technology was when we began the business. So it was 1986.
Okay, gosh, so I'm going to dive in a little bit about that journey, but tell us about where you are now, because you're obviously a lot bigger than that now, and you're international, and you're clearly you've got some great clients.
Yeah. So today we're one of the largest independent firms in the world. We have close to 300 people in a variety of offices. Our core offices are in Manhattan, Los Angeles, London, and New Jersey, where we were founded. Um, we represent some of the biggest and most important brands in the world, but we also represent many entrepreneurs and growth companies.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, our I don't know exactly the number, but we're probably, in the top 25 globally. Independence means not owned by, an advertising agency or public or et cetera. And we truly believe we're fiercely independent, and we truly believe that a mid-size independent agency that operates on one P&L, so we truly bring the best of our agency to bear for every
Mm.
single client, an agency that is truly people first, client centric, and really run by this one P&L philosophy is a better firm to manage, and frankly a better firm to work for, and a better firm to hire.
Sure, sure. Okay, so I mean, you bring so much to the table for for my purposes, and there's three things I'd love to delve into. One is around the growth journey of Mike Worldwide, and any of the challenges and lessons that you learned from that. One is, you're dealing with some very high profile, some of the highest profile, sometimes, people in the world and brands in the world, and how you go about influencing them and working with them. And the second is the use of PR specifically, and I'm specifically interested in consultancies and professional service firms, which traditionally haven't done much in the PR space and in the branding space, even. Some of them are just getting into digital marketing, let alone anything more sophisticated. So if it's okay with you, if we could start with the growth of Mike Worldwide, and just really reflect on any challenges, any learnings that you had, and any successes that, if you, perhaps even if you were going to do it again, how you might do it differently.
Well, I don't have many regrets about how I did it.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean I didn't do things wrong, but they were all a learning experience. Michael Jordan, once said he's never lost. I'm paraphrasing here. He's never lost. He's either won or learned a
Yeah.
lesson. So I look at it, not that I'm comparing myself to Michael Jordan, but I look at it that way. So without the risk and without the failure, I would have never learned and not been here today. It doesn't mean the failures were fun.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that I was happy about them, but it does mean that they all become part of the whole of who you are.
sure.
And I think it's very important that brought us here today. And one of the frankly the hardest things to do, I try to teach people to take risks. And most people are not accustomed or not programmed to be okay with failure.
Mm,
And if you're going to take risk, you're going to fail sometime. But I would argue that failure is required if you're going to grow. The the to me, the biggest lesson I learned. So let's take a step back. We were very successful very quickly, and uh, and for kind of an odd reason, I had never been in a PR firm in my life.
no.
Not in the lobby, not in the bathroom, not in the elevator. And so it was all about just coming to work every day just to do the right thing, and coming to work every day to win, and coming to work every day just to do what makes sense. So I was not bound by convention and norm. So we did many things that people would say, and again, these are all legal and ethical. They just
Sure.
weren't,
Yeah.
you know, check the box
Yep.
strategy. People would say you can't do that. I'd say, why not? Because you can't. Why not? Because you're not supposed to. I said, we're going to try it. And so, and we could try and fail and then finally succeed 5 times in the
Mm,
amount of time that they were debating whether you can do it or not.
yep.
So we brought this philosophy to bear for our clients, and we were just going to do what makes sense. How are we going to get this done? And we were able to win for our clients very quickly on a very regular basis. And that allowed our reputation to grow and to obviously clients beget clients,
Mm,
staff, etc. But I would say early on, coming from US politics is not necessarily the kindest employer. And
sure.
so I never came from a place where, and people mattered when I started, but they were fungible. That was how I grew up.
Mm,
And so I would listen to all of the great, read the business books and listen to the brilliant business minds of the era. And they all would say, it's about your people, it's about your people. And I'm not sure I really believed it at the time. And so we were really successful, and we are a hard driven place, but I would argue too hard driven.
hmm
And, and I quickly learned that, wow, these people were right, that this business is pretty simple, but very hard. And that is if you can attract talent, help them grow, motivate them to stay, this business is simple. It's as simple as that, but that's hard. We're dealing with people. To find, motivate, attract, retain people is a
mm,
full-time job. But I soon learned that the most important job of the CEO, which is still my job today, is human capital. And so I often say that I don't run a public relations firm. I run a human capital company that happens to sell integrated communication services.
yep. Yep. Yeah. That's it's a really good reflection, because I always say consultancies or agencies operate in two markets. One is to get the clients, but the one that's forgotten about most, but can help you with the first, is the people side of things. And I've lost count of the number of mid-sized firms that really struggle with finding good people that are prepared to work hard and want to work in that sized firm. Because obviously, some people, want to work for the big firm. So you've got to really have a solid proposition, haven't you, for your employees?
I think it's a solid proposition and a solid culture.
Yeah.
So there are people that like all different cultures, and it doesn't mean ours is better or worse than anybody else's. It just means it's ours. So how do you find people that will thrive in your culture? And that's so you can meet somebody who's brilliant at what they do, but you don't believe that they will be successful in your culture. Now, again, culture evolves. Each person that joins adds something to the culture, but you still have a base foundation in your soul, in your gut,
Mm.
that are your core principles, and you need to find people that will thrive in that. So I found each and every time, each and every size we've been, how do you find people that are the right kind of people for your size, culture, and clients? But again, it has to be very intentional. If you're not intentional about culture, if you're not intentional about how you're going to attract and retain people, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah. Okay. So just I mean, I'm very interested in this because obviously it's a challenge that a lot of my clients have faced, even if they have a good culture and employee proposition, if you want to call it that, at the size of 30. Once you get to 130, it's hard to know everyone. It's hard to talk to everyone. And you need systems and processes and all the rest of it. So how did you manage to maintain your core values whilst bringing in that layer of process and formality that allows a firm to get to 300 plus?
So let's start with the fact that we didn't do it well every day, all the time.
Sure.
A lot of this was learning, and a lot of this was trial and error. The one thing you see with a rapidly growing small company is that your infrastructure never keeps up with your pace of growth. And that's always a tension. So uh, until you understand and become intentional about it. But when you're small, you can't afford to spend a lot of money on non-billable employees. So, and then you get to a certain size, you realize your non-billable employees become some of your most important people, your CFO, your chief people officer. But it's how, so it goes back to intentionality, because you're right. I've talked to many of my friends that 30, 40 people, they're there. It's a cause.
Mm.
And once you get to 50 plus people, it's a job. And it doesn't mean it's not a good job. It doesn't mean it's not the best job they've ever had. They could love the job, but it's a job. It's no longer a call. And so, and you have to manage through other people. I used to know everybody's kids and their dogs and their moms, and today I don't. So, so you have to, and since you're not touching everybody every day, you have to depend upon your layers of management to also buy into your culture
Yep.
and to push that down from top to bottom, bottom up. And so, and if you just have one person that's off, it has a massive disruption,
Mm.
in the force. So it's always I spend a disproportionate my time, as I said, on human capital. So I meet with my most junior employees up to my most senior on a regular basis. Frankly, I meet with mid-level to junior much more than I meet with senior, because these are the people that are in the trenches that actually have to do all the things that sound like great ideas in my office. You often find that many of them are not such great ideas.
Mm.
But so, and I'm always pleased when I hear two things. When they talk about our culture, and it's the culture that I want the agency to have. That means it is working up and down our employee base.
Yeah.
And then when I interview people and they tell me the reason they're interviewing with us is because of our culture, and they describe our culture in the way that I'd like it to be described, that means it's real. That means that it is, that it is happening from inside out, not outside in. And then I know that we are um, managing our culture right with the right intentionality. But again, it's never just a straight line. There are times and there are people that have a negative impact. And, I would say one of the lessons you learn, I don't know if you learned it, one of the lessons that I think every CEO would tell you is, we don't fire fast enough.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about firing people who work hard or even try and aren't successful, because it's our job to put people in a position to be successful, help them but the people that are damaging your culture and the people that will not evolve into your culture, those people should go. We tend to hang on to them because they're smart or they're
Sure.
particularly adept at a particular service offering or vertical. But we eventually have to make that change. And none of us, fire fast enough
Mm.
that those kind of employees.
Thank you. And just one final reflection while we're talking about the firm. You seem to have been able to tread a line that a lot of CEOs who have grown their own firms struggle with, which is balancing control with allowing people to fail. And it was quite interesting that you talked about risk taking early on, and the fact that you've got to the size that you have done with the firm, to me, would indicate that seems to be working. Now, a lot of founders really struggle with letting go of the reins, and sometimes will be peering over the consultant or the analyst's shoulder, saying, "No, I would do it like this," and that, of course, inhibits risk taking more than anything else, and damages the culture sometimes, especially if you want to grow. But it seems that you've managed to balance those.
Well, I would hope so. And since the day we started the business, I have truly tried to hire people that were better than me in what they did. So people tell me they're bad at delegating. And then I ask them about their teams. And the fact is that if you don't trust your people and you don't believe they're as good as you, if not better, it's very hard to let go.
Yeah.
So I've worked very hard to hire a team that I truly believe is better than me in what they do. It doesn't mean that my years of wisdom and advice and experience does not come to play
Mm.
and help them to even be better at it. But the fact is, they're great at it. And
Yeah.
so, but the most painful lesson you learn and the hardest one is that there's more than one way to accomplish a goal. And they may do it differently than you, but as long as they're doing it well and we're getting to the same place, and they're doing it, I often say, so to me, you know, uh, getting something wrong is not really the issue. I mean, if you make a mistake, but for the right reason,
Mm.
you fail, but for the right reasons, then what can you say?
Yeah.
Try something else.
Yeah.
Our job isn't empirical. Things happen. Uh, but it's really, the wrong decision for the wrong reasons that are difficult to stomach. Even that, they're teaching moments and you work on it. But, you try to get people to make the right decisions for the right reasons. And if you can do that and you hire, remember, part of this is the hiring process. Who are you
Sure.
going to hire?
Yeah.
So you have to hire like-minded people. And doesn't mean they have the same personalities. It doesn't mean it's, flat. I mean, you have,
Mm.
it's an orchestra. You have to, it's staging. You need different kind of personalities for different kind of jobs and different kind of roles. But, but teaching, it's okay to fail for the right reasons. To me, it's like, okay, I mean, you tried, you did your best. If you truly did your best, you did your best,
Mm.
learn from it, and move on.
Yeah,
I'm a big fast fail person. I don't spend a lot of time focusing on failure. I spend a lot of time on much more time looking forward.
sure.
And I learned early on, I had some pretty tough bosses that you can't look forward when you're looking over your shoulder all day long.
Yeah,
And so I chose to let people to move forward and not look over the shoulder, not have them looking over the shoulder to
yeah,
find out
sure.
what was wrong all day long.
That's great. That's really, really nice insight. Thank you. Okay, so I wanted to move on. I have a pet obsession with U.S. politics, not just because it affects everyone in the world. I find it a much more exciting place than British politics. I'm not sure why, but you have had the pleasure of what you mentioned, Carter, earlier, and I know you've worked with some, very senior and also presidential people more recently. Now that to me is slightly mind blowing if I'm honest, because I've spent 30 years reading about some of these people. Um, I'm interested in the influence side of things. So how do you there's so many questions going through my head.
Your time.
First, how do you best um, communicate with people that are that successful and that powerful as a trusted advisor, or confidant or whatever, without having the imposter syndrome that I would I would definitely have.
Well, you never fully get rid of the imposter syndrome, but
Okay.
you learn to manage it. You learn to how do you put it in a compartment in your back pocket when
Mm,
you walk in. So that's a skill you learn because when you start, I remember the first time I spent time with a president was President Carter. I was 19, and remember we
wow.
talked about how I was working full time as this lobbyist in Washington D.C. My boss sent me over to meet with the president about an issue that the governor was working on behalf of the president, and she didn't come. So this was going to be sink or swim. She wanted to see
Wow.
if it could succeed. So I remember going into the cabinet room and just me and President Carter at 19 and briefing him on this topic. And I don't even know what I said. It's all I remember thinking about is I have to steal something. No one's going to believe I was here. You know, can I put a saucer, in my
Yeah.
pocket, or, I mean, or something? But, it's like anything else. You do it enough, it just becomes second nature. And so,
Okay.
I had the pleasure of knowing, every Democratic president since then, Bill Clinton
Wow.
and Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton, and just senators, congressmen, governors. And you soon learn that they're just people. And so once you get past the awe,
Sure.
they're just people.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, it never gets old to, and it never gets completely comfortable in sitting down and talking to a president.
Sure.
Um, but it's like anything else, it's muscle memory. You do it enough and you do it long enough, all of a sudden it's just what you do. And um, but in every situation, you have to be confident, you have to know your facts. Don't say something you can't back up.
Mm,
Uh, um, it's okay to have an opinion, uh, but understand that the final arbiter is them. But I've always said whether it's a client or a politician, my job is to give you advice. Now you don't have to take it. The
sure.
fact is that it's about I hope you will consider it as part of your decision process.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, as long as it's legal and ethical, it's my job to carry out your decision. So, but, I have been known to have strong opinions over the years, and I'm not shy in expressing them. Um, but I also understand that at the end of the day, I can make the decisions for myself or for my company or for my family. But my job, whether it's a politician or a client, is to give them my best possible advice. And when I feel very strongly about it, maybe argue it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's their company, it's their decision. And then it's my job to figure out the best, most strategic and successful way to carry it out.
And how do you manage that process of influence? Because I've, on a much smaller level, of course, I've been in situations where I'm talking to a CEO. I'm absolutely convinced that I believe they should do X. They don't see it. And I've seen this, 20, 30, maybe 100 times. And I'm pretty sure that this is the way to go. They don't see it, and are tracking off in a different direction. And any trusted advisor has, as you said, a responsibility to say, give their opinion. How far can you go down the line of trying to persuade someone, especially someone who's very successful, the most powerful person in the world, perhaps? How far can you go in attempting to persuade people, and does it depend on their personality?
Totally depends on the person. It totally depends on the construct around that person. Um, but you really have to. You have a couple of. There's only a couple of options you have when you're giving advice.
Sure.
Either you can fall on your sword, and if they don't do it, and you're that committed and that convinced that by not doing it, they're really making a bad decision, it might be a disaster. Your only recourse is to quit. Or to stop.
Yeah.
But most decisions are not empirical. So they're not math. So I could have my opinion, and I could strongly have my opinion, and my opinions are usually backed up with data and analytics and other things. But again, I don't. One thing I learned over the years is put your ego aside. As long as you're doing your job honestly and giving them the right advice and the right opinion, it's their decision. And so you learn that over the years. But there are times where you so disagree with the decision and you're so concerned that you'll just bow out. You don't want to be part of the implementation. But for the most part, I've learned over the years that, again, my job is to come to you with data driven, both kind of art and science, instinct driven, experience driven, plans, ideas, suggestions, strategies.
Mm.
But it's the client's, but it's up to the client or up to the politician or whoever the principal is to consider that and make a decision. But I would say that, the vast majority of advice one may give is not empirical. It's an opinion.
Yeah.
And so, and again, I kind of look at it, I think my opinion is right, but who's to say that my opinion is right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Mm.
So I take a look at that, and I think the key is to take your ego out of it. And as long as the decision is legal and ethical, the responsibility is on the principal, it's not on you.
This is a really a personal question. It's not. For me, it's not really to do with the business side of things. But do you find, has PR got more difficult in this sort of? I don't want to use the phrase post-truth world, because I think there are limitations to that description. But clearly, what's happened with social media, and even AI and deep fakes, which we're going to probably see a lot of in the British and US elections. is PR becoming much more, I guess it's becoming much more crucial as these alternative realities get posed. So I guess my question is around the truth. Is how can you communicate the truth of any situation, whether it's to do with immigration or global warming or whatever the PR campaign is about, in the face of a very highly weaponized social media and perhaps in the next year AI influence pushing the other direction.
Well, I read a great quote this morning that truth isn't dead, just nobody believes it. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So
agreed.
um, we live in a marketers and people who have to make decisions about communicating. They have a crisis of confidence because you know the the you know Bud Light is the most perfect example. Uh,
Mm,
you know, it was a barely a campaign. It was one influencer on a limited edition can of beer,
yep,
and 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 one or two, a handful of people said something, and it blew up.
yeah.
Um, and so part of it is how do you really spend time on the risk mitigation side when you think about what you're going to do?
Mm,
Part of it is, we use a lot of AI, predictive analytics here to try to get as close to certainty as possible, but you can't ever be certain
yeah,
because the smallest thing, whether you drink red soda or blue soda, someone could extrapolate your politics,
yep.
and the the fact is that we live in the crisis of confidence. So part of it is, and that means people, marketers in particular, are afraid to take risk.
Mm,
Uh, and and often, not taking risk is the biggest risk of all
yes.
because you
Yeah.
can't move forward, you move backwards. So how can we, as a consultant, using data analytics, other tools we have, get as close to certain as possible to give marketers more confidence? The other, and that leads us to, um, we live in a reputation economy. I mean, the fact is, your reputation is going to decide the value of your business, or whether you're going to have brand loyalty, whether people are going to buy the products. And it just doesn't
Mm,
mean a bad reputation. People, we all can understand about defending reputation. You have a problem. We have a very large crisis communication reputation defense practice here.
sure.
And um, and so that's stopping bad things. But we have a saying here that uh, a good reputation gives you license to operate. A great reputation gives you license to thrive. And so when people often think about reputation, it's just how can we stop a bad one?
Yeah,
The
sure.
today people don't really buy products and services based on feature sets. They do it based on a company's reputation, how they treat their employees. Are they responsible stewards of the environment? Um, I, and so many other factors. But given the choice between two products that are comparable in price, quality, uh, you're going to go to the company, or you're going to buy the product or service with the reputation that aligns with your values,
Sure.
or you believe is higher quality. And the opposite, if you have a poor reputation, it's not even that people will stop buying your products. You're going to get punished.
Mm,
They will come after you. So to me, it's all about, we live in a reputation economy. and brands need to focus on reputation first. But reputation is also quality of product, innovation. There's so many things that make up reputation, but it is a company's most important asset and determines the success or failure of a brand.
Yeah, yeah. That I think that's a really good insight, and it leads quite nicely onto the third thing that I'd like to talk briefly about, and that's the use of PR for people businesses or B2B or consultancies, agencies. Now, I specialize in the consulting world, and there is always the saying that you should invest as much in PR and your brand as you do in digital campaigns and your CRM campaigns and all the rest of it. But most firms don't. And I'd say 90% of even mid-sized consultancies that I deal with have never used PR. They might do a bit of LinkedIn, they might do the odd podcast, but that's about it. So what are the benefits of focusing on brand and using PR to help you with that for people businesses?
So we have represented people businesses since our start for 37 years. And today we represent some of the biggest in the world: Deloitte, DLA Piper, Hedrick and Struggles. And so there was a sea change that happened at a more sophisticated level with larger firms. Not all larger firms, some just pay it lip service. But it goes back to brand and reputation. So brand and reputation matters a great deal about clients hiring you. But what really changed it for the better was the people wars. That most of these large and even mid-size professional service organizations, they're in a constant war for talent. They hire 5, 10, 20, 50,000 people a year. And so how can you be the employer of choice? So this term employer brand became very popular. We are one of the early practitioners of it, one of the early proponents of it. And so much of the brand work, the initial brand work, professional service, came in how are we going to be the employer of choice? And because their most important asset was people, and all competing for the same people. So, and even like a secondary or a tertiary size firm, they may not be competing for the students from Cambridge and Oxford or Harvard and Columbia, but they're all competing for the students in their category.
Yep.
Maybe from a Fordham or Tufts, or maybe this kind of the next tier tops. So how are they going to be the employer of choice? Then they also understood that thought leadership is now a critical component. And if you are not seen as a leader in the categories you want to dominate or in the verticals where you're an expert, you're not going to have any clients. So the firms we represent understand that they need to invest fairly heavily in important thought leadership programs.
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely. I think thought leadership is, and a lot of people do it badly. To be honest, and there's so many opportunities to do it well with decent research and outreach and copy editing and all the rest. And it tends to fall in when people do it badly. It's either because it's been written by the technical experts and hasn't been touched by anyone else, or it's just been written by the marketing people and there's been no technical expertise.
It's interesting that in most professional service firms, the people are very smart and highly compensated, which often leads someone to think that they're good at writing a press release, or they understand PR. and those are the companies that don't succeed as much.
Yeah.
They let their egos get in the way.
Yes.
Or they let their confidence get in the way more than their egos. Where the ones that succeed do what you say, is that you need both the vertical and horizontal expertise to make sure that you're hitting your target markets, that you're spending your money effectively to hit your target markets that are driving the results you need and want. So, too many people just, see PR as putting things out there in the ether. But again, we come in with data-driven, predictive analytics, AI use programs that are very measurable. And we can tell you whether or not these programs are working based on certain metrics, certain KPIs. The and it's interesting. There's so many tactics from consumer marketing that are now making their way over to B2B audiences. So B2B influencers, which is a practice that we were, again, one of the first practitioners, and it's a very important practice. You can use influencer campaigns very effectively to have big impact on B2B organizations.
Really? That's something I haven't heard of before.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
We use it a lot. You also can there's a variety of technologies out there where you can really focus in on individual people, not just organizations. You can go after specifically a CEO or a managing partner or the CMO or the CTO. You can that's to that person. You can ring fence if you want to influence Walmart. You can do campaigns and ring fence Bentonville, Arkansas. The point is that there's a variety of things you can do today using technology and taking programs and taking lessons from consumer marketing. And then with the explosion of LinkedIn, that can have a very meaningful impact on your business success.
Yes. Yeah, I agree completely. I'm a big fan of using LinkedIn strategically for marketing and networking and brand building as well. But again, a lot of firms do it piecemeal, or they simply don't know what the capabilities of the tech is out there. It's very reassuring for me to hear you talking about this, because I'm a big fan of the use of tech and the wraparound, knowledge that you put around it. But
We can tell you which content is going to work, what is more likely to get engagement and with who, by using a series of tools and AI and predictive analytics. So you can get down to that level of science.
Wow.
Now, some people can't, there are companies that don't have those kind of budgets.
Yeah.
But with experts like yourself, there's also a lot of just art to it, not just science, right?
Yeah.
So having a good LinkedIn artist like yourself can drive very significant business outcomes.
Yes. Yes, I think that's the key, is having that know-how. It's all very. I tried this before. I've said to marketing directors or partners, "Well, you should use this piece of tech because it's really useful with outreach or targeting or whatever." But without showing them how to use it and how to craft the word and all that stuff that we as consultants we do day to day, understanding the client, what type of person are you talking to? The tech doesn't work. It's not simple.
People are busy. It's very hard for them to take the time to do the marketing when you have a client screaming on the telephone.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's understandable that people don't get to it because they just don't have time to do it. However, if you can carve out the time and take the time, or you have a team underneath you that understands your voice, your point of view, and then they have the ability and they have the authority to go ahead and do it, you're going to be successful. We actually, one of the things we've done here is using AI. We've created, chat CEO bots.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
so one of the issues is it's very, it's very time intensive to get copy approved. And so by establishing these bots, we have everything that executive has ever said, speeches, writing, LinkedIn posts, anything you think of. So we can actually query the bot,
Right.
come back with content that is in that CEO's voice in topics he or she likes to talk about. And the approval process goes from, a week to 2 hours.
Yep. I've done the same with my own content. I've written around 1 million words on the consulting industry, and it's quite remarkable how good this stuff is. And it's
Yep.
only going to get better, of course. Maybe we're not going to need the CEO. Maybe you'll be doing PR to AI bots in 10 years time.
I'm still not convinced that it will replace us. I think it's going to let us to do, better, faster, cheaper. Where we, and a lot of the things we do today that are really not value added will go away. And I've always said I would love to get that part of the business, to eliminate that part of the business.
Yeah.
Why charge clients for things that are not truly value add?
Yeah.
They're just, they're just administrative work. So if we can take those budgets and focus exclusively on the value add part of the business, it's better for our industry and it's better for our clients.
Brilliant. Michael, thank you so much. I don't think I've learned so much in such a short space of time before. It's been a real pleasure having you on. And my key takeaway, which I hadn't thought about before, is the importance of brands when you're talking to employees. So apart from my jealousy of you being at the cutting edge of American politics and having met so many presidents, that's my major takeaway.
And I would tell you the other takeaway for your listeners is reputation, reputation, reputation. If people focus on that in a modern term, not in a traditional term, they will have materially more value for their brand and their companies.
Yeah.
So, listen, I loved it. So anytime I can listen to myself talk for 45 minutes, I'm a happy person. So I genuinely appreciate it. You're a wonderful interviewer. I enjoyed it. And please get in touch anytime.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Good. Thank you. Right. Let me just stop recording.